Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Pondcast. Today's episode, Artist Alley, featuring the artist Zzzeldo, also on the Instagram as Ondu Region. I'm your host, Draco, and joining me today is Chase.
What's cracking, everyone?
Guren.
Alola.
And joining us once again, the infamous Last Champion Spirit. Awesome to have you. Thank you for joining us once again.
Awesome to be here.
Chase, this was something you brought to the table. Why don't you kick it?
So I was mindlessly scrolling through Twitter, as one does, and I kept coming across this artist's art. And you know what? He's got some phenomenal ideas from his own region that looks like he's building his own region, which I believe is called the Ondu region, and that's why he has it in his name. He also does a lot of Paradox mons. I do believe he is open for commissions. He does have a Patreon, so if you guys enjoy what you see today, please, at the very least, go and head over to his Twitter or his Instagram and just have a look. You don't have to follow him, you don't have to like anything. If you want to, by all means, go ahead. If anyone wants to support him further, check out his Patreon. That's not for you. Maybe commission him, get him to do something small for you. But yeah, so I've picked out a few, well, I say a few. I actually picked out quite a lot. We might not get through all of them today. But a few pieces I want to look through specifically are the Charcadet evolutions, because I find those to be really cool. So first one I want to look at is a Charcadet evolution that is fire and water. He's named it Tsunami, gives off lots of Poseidon and very oceany vibes. Obviously the armor's called the Atlantean armor. You get probably Clauncher pieces to get the armor.
Yeah, I was about to say, it looks like Clauncher and Empoleon mixed together.
Yeah, that does look like Empoleon's trident.
Yeah.
I love how the Clauncher head looks like it's an underwater heat vent that's just spewing the hot, steamy water vapor, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably where the fire typing is coming. Otherwise, I only really see it in the shiny.
Yeah, I like the throwback to Clauncher and to the Empoleon, giving it that mix of color. The heat vent, it didn't even resonate with me until you pointed that out, X. But the shiny definitely shows off that it is a fiery type Pokemon still, and water fire is still such a rare typing, and I like seeing it again. It's such an interesting typing that we just don't get enough of, and I like this one. That's really good.
So can I also jump in here and add real quick that the golden armor is really giving me like Jason the Argonauts vibes with the golden fleece, which might actually fit into the whole folktale legendary armor thing.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so the next one I want to look at is called Barbaroid. This is a fire and steel type evolution for Charcadet. Uses the barbarian armor, and this thing looks phenomenal. Okay, I prefer it in the silver coloring, but the green also looks ridiculously cool, and I like that the sort of barbarian ex-berserker motifs that it's sort of trying to portray.
I have got to say that the giant axe is really intriguing to me because it is so large. But at the same time, I also have to agree with you, Chase. The shiny version on the top definitely looks a lot better to me, aesthetic-wise, because I think the green is just overpowered too much on this one. There isn't enough to offset all that green.
But I completely agree with that.
But the silver with the blue highlights is definitely really a beautiful touch. And you can see it is very defensive, which would, of course, be the high defense on it definitely matches what you would think of when you look at that particular armor, the way it's designed. And having it sheer force, it's an interesting ability to give it, but I do like it.
So I think it would be really cool. I appreciate the silver art because to me it brings a lot of Legend of Zelda. The Dark Nut, I think, was the heavy armored enemy in there. It gives me some of those vibes. The axe draws a lot of attention from the main focus and the more detailed aspects of this. I think it would have been a lot cooler if the axe was smaller and somehow attached to the arm that's opposite this heavy-armed gauntlet. I love the little gauntlet design, the way it looks like it's almost got its own facial features.
Yeah, I see it.
I thought that was just a regular shield thing.
I can't unsee that now.
So the interesting thing about the green armor to me, though, is it gives off this magical thing. And since we just moved from a more Atlantis sort of design, this really makes me think of the Orichalcum, which is popular in the Atlantis myths. And often seen with this like neon green sort of glow, similar to the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise.
Oh,
That makes a lot of sense.
You in the meme, seal of Orichalcos. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
Buy it.
if you look sort of his waist, there's a cloth piece hanging down. That also does kind of look like the Nordic representation of Thor's hammer, so maybe could take some inspiration from Nordic myth.
Oh, it does look like Mjolnir.
That does make a lot of sense, like the Barbarian or the Berserkers.
Yeah.
And that would actually draw another contrast if you want to use this as a nice segue to the next one, where we see a contrast of like the far north, more western, even though it is like heavy east.
Following on that, we're going to look at Kunite next. It uses the shadow armor to evolve, and like X was saying, I think with the three of them, this also contrasts very well, and it gives off a lot of those sort of East Asian vibes and like what you would associate typical like ninja or so those kinds of motifs.
I don't know if you meant to say it or if I just heard it, but I heard Ninjor, which is straight Power Rangers, and I love that. It should be blue now.
I have to say that I do like there's some aesthetics in here that are really working for this design. I'm not entirely sure I'm sold on the floating hands, but the whole design of the armor looks very sleek. It looks like it's made to cut through air to be faster. It's reflected in the high speed stat. It looks like it's gonna throw the blades like kunai, which are really well designed, but the hands look like dragons, which is a really nice kind of segue to some of the traditional designs of Asian mythology that I'm familiar with, and I definitely appreciate this one. The Crimson one also gives me very reminiscent of Scizor, but not the heavyweight slowness of Scizor. This is more kind of like if Kartana was colored the way Scizor was, if you follow. And I do love the crimson look. It definitely fits nicely. And don't get me wrong, I actually do like the dark black one as well. It fits with the typing. I think both designs, both colorings work really well here, and the overall design is really nice. I appreciate it.
Well, the fact that it gets technician too, it's like, oh man, maybe this really is like something where you gotta like farm some Scizor materials to make, you know, like. Yeah.
I was thinking more Bi-Sharp.
Yeah. Oh, Bi-Sharp, yeah.
So
like,
I
was about to say that's why, like, the typing doesn't match though.
But the Bi-Sharp thing really makes a lot of sense to me. I think it should have a little bit more steel, but I like the fire dark still. What I really thought about the floating arms, because I felt awkward until I saw the idea of maybe those kunai sort of like collapse in. Maybe one blade still leaves out the dragon's head, and then the others go back and form the rest of an arm more resting as opposed to a battle form.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that.
I love the scarf coming off, the detail of the little like eyebrows to add to the edginess. And I swear Darkrai summoned this little ninja thing to take out everyone.
You know, yeah, I
could see it.
I could see it. I could so see it.
Darkrai Acolyte, yeah.
That was good. That's a good matchup there.
You're being hunted by the ninjas of Scizor and Darkrai.
If you guys don't mind, I'd actually like to focus on one of them. Blazing Roar. It looks like a combination of Incineroar and what is the legendary Pokemon that's got the ring on it? Volcanion, thank you. Yeah, it's got this really interesting look of Volcanion and Incineroar. And that's kind of the reason I kind of got drawn to it, because it looks so sleek. I like the fact that it looks like a giant ring around its head. It's a Paradox Pokemon, apparently. I think the crimson color is kind of throwing me off a little bit.
Magenta.
Yeah, you're right. It's more like a magenta. Like the magenta color is throwing me off a little bit on the form. However, I think the blue works really, really, really well, because if you study the colors of flames, the different colors denote different temperature, and blue is significant of one of the hotter temperatures that a flame can be. And so I think that design, the shiny reflects that really well, especially with the hidden ability.
There's one thing I want to touch on quickly, if you don't mind me just... So, the Gen 7 starters themselves invoke an entertainer motif. Normal Incineroar being like... If we take in the context of a circus, you've got Incineroar as the strong man, Primarina as the seal balancing a ball on its nose, or maybe like a sideshow mermaid type thing. And then you've got Decidueye being the sharpshooter. And this design, to me, sort of invokes the lion jumping through the ring of fire.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I see it.
I was going a different direction with it. I was thinking of it being more like the guardian lions that we see Arcanine and Growlithe based off of, and the Ring of Fire being very similar to the cords or scarves that we see Kitsune wear.
Oh,
That's a very good shout.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment on the color scheme for the regular colored form as well, because like I was looking at it, I'm like, oh man, this is like Galarian Moltres colors, and then I thought about it, I was like, but wait, there's more. It's like also the same colors of Yveltal as well, and it's like, oh my god, it's so good. And the fact that it's playing off the dark typing still, and like I'm also taking like a look at like its hind legs in comparison to its front legs, where like it really looks like this thing maybe it could attempt to stand on two legs, but not really. But other than that, it would definitely have a lot of jumping power from how it looks, and it's like another like kind of like shout out thing to like the whole Ring of Fire thing. So
with the claws the way they are up front, it definitely looks like it could climb, which would eventually lead to it building its upper body strength when you think about it. Because if you look at the Incineroar design, the hind legs look very much the same as in their rendition, but the forearms, the chest, those are claws, those are nails. So I can definitely see an evolutionary movement there, and I do like it. And the fact that it goes from having the flame belt to from the flame head, it wouldn't surprise me, because I mean, evolution sometimes does weird things where certain characteristics shift position for optimum movement. In this case, it just becomes a flame belt as opposed to a flame head.
Can I also point out the chest though? Because I think this would be awesome, seeing it rear up on its back legs, similar to we see Skeletor's doing for its fire attacks, and it just blasts it out the chest. Instead of like fire breathing or something, it just, maybe that ring dissipates and you just see it glowing, and then it just launches from the chest.
Yeah, it would also show nicely with the dark markings of Incineroar on the chest plate. Like, it doesn't do it anymore because it doesn't have to. It's got the belt.
And it also kind of looks like scarring as well as definition on Incineroar.
Maybe that fire ring, so as it learns to stand up, that fire ring drops further and further down its body, and that's what becomes the belt. Because if you look at the top of the fire ring, there's one sort of like bit of flame that's bigger than the rest, and that could sort of line up as where the buckle would usually be.
Maybe that's also what helps its hip change in its evolution to Incineroar as well. The fire being restrictive around that area allows it to stand up on its hind legs, allowing it to be a more aggressive predator. Can I toss Spoilage Fury into that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
This, not on top of looking like Virizion, it was very reminiscent of one of the starters that I see in the Lunaria region back home. And I love the very snipe or moa or legendary extinct flightless bird motif that we're getting on here, as well as the headpieces of Virizion really being these like jet thrusters for this grass and dragon type. Like most of the past Paradox, photosynthesis as an ability and hidden ability is kind of restrictive, and I wish they were more explorative with that. But this thing absolutely looks amazing.
You did mention starters, and when I first saw it, it invoked a lot of sort of Sceptile motifs. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought it was a Paradox version for Sceptile.
That would be pretty cool.
Agreed. Yeah,
especially with the dragon being an homage to its Mega.
Oh yeah, with the grass dragon typing, right?
Yeah, for
right.
Sceptile.
I like the fact that it looks like a Velociraptor, especially with the middle claw being thicker. Thank you, Jurassic Park, for that one. But we just got a water dragon walking wake, and this is very similar to that. It's almost identical. For me, fits so much better than the Virizion we got. Like, I know there's supposed to be robotic futures. Who's to say that the way they look now is what they're supposed to? Like, it's really weird, but I love the past Paradox stuff. They've done a lot of really nice work, and this is definitely just falls in line with that. And I think it definitely keeps that same spirit of Paradox Pokemon are, how they lead up into the current versions, or potentially what could be. And in this case, with you guys talking about Sceptile, I can definitely see this being like the grandpappy of Virizion or Sceptile, and what you're seeing is a branch evolution.
Ooh, yeah.
So to add to that, jumping in, if nobody minds, I wanted to also point out, you mentioned Superior, we mentioned Sceptile, Virizion. One of the things I've talked about with Professor Kari lately is the idea of pre-emergent species in the Pokemon evolutionary tree, where you're going to see Pokemon of what was this before it branched off into its more serpentine or reptilian version. Like, what is this pseudo-reptile Pokemon? And this very much could be a pseudo-reptile bird thing, like Draco mentioned, the raptor, before it became more avian. It's great.
I just want to say, because it kind of does look like it does have feathers, right? Like, I know it shows like the grass dragon typing, but like the leaves on it are quote unquote leaves, and the pink feathers does kind of make it seem like it could go into that direction as well, right? Into that branching off of an avian like species. So
if you look at the moves that they have on the one, it actually shows Draco Arrow, which this also to me linked it to Dracloak. Is that the final one? In the way that it has the dragon darts.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't even think about that one.
So this is very much a proto or pre-emergent Pokemon in my mind.
Yeah, I like that.
Good job, Zzzeldo.
I know we were talking about Superior earlier, so I wanted to touch in on the Paradox version that's over here, Forbidden Fruit. As someone who's like interested in like all this like mythos and stuff like this, like this is like a really nice shout out to the whole like Garden of Eden thing, and the whole thing with like the snake and the Fruit of Wisdom or something. I forgot what it was called.
The Fruit of Knowledge.
Fruit of Knowledge.
Knowledge of good and evil. Yep.
Yeah. So like this is like really like a very nice ref to that, because like it's first off, it's grass poison, which is like amazing, like especially with the whole like motif and like how the story went down too, with like the whole temptation of eating the fruit. I do like how the tail has that quote unquote fruit, and it kind of looks like an applin, so that just kind of makes it adorable.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
I didn't catch it at first. It looks like an angry applin.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be like that. So Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs had the poison apple. I think that's supposed to be a poison applin.
Yeah.
Oh, get out of my head, man! Get out of my head! I was gonna say,
give us a poison flapple.
Poison flapple. It's the Wicked Queen with the poisoned apple.
Yeah, so much references.
Yeah, because if you look at it, it's like a very glamorous, feminine with the shiny version of it. I mean, even the regular version of it looks very feminine. And with the poison apple, my brain just went right to Snow White, the Seven Dwarves, the evil queen, and the poisoned apple. So yeah, that was great.
So I'm surprised nobody landed the hammer on the nail of this one, especially with the more circular tail coming around and the feminine figure being along that right side of the circle. This is very 100% on point with the representation of ambrosia in Grecian and Roman mythology depictions.
Interesting. I thought you were going to go with the Ouroboros myself, but yeah, I didn't even think about the ambrosia.
That would be cool to see an Ouroboros that falls for its own tricks.
Yeah. Well,
and it eats the own apple.
Well, I'm not even familiar with what you had mentioned about the ambrosia, but when you started saying something, I was like, ooh, maybe the Ouroboros, because it's the snake eating its own tail. And where's the applin? At the tip of the tail. What's it looking at? The apple.
Yeah, the ambrosia thing is very similar to the biblical apple of Eden thing, except for I think it parallels more some of the Chinese, the immortal elixir, where the ambrosia was the fruit of life instead of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil.
Okay.
And it was often, even in Devil May Cry, we see it protected by a succubus.
Oh, okay.
Definitely gonna have to do some research on that one.
Yeah, the Lunarian coming with the esoteric.
No, I mean, seriously, anytime we can drop some knowledge bombs out there, it'd be great.
Yeah.
The one I'm going to choose now is actually the first piece of art that I saw from this artist, and that's actually what got me hooked on him and what made me decide to go and look at his page and look at the rest of his art, which consequently led me to asking him if we could feature him on our channel, is Venomous Volt.
I'm not going to lie, I was actually looking at that one too.
Yeah,
I love the take on that.
Yeah, I really digged the idea of what the Pokemon Company did with Walking Wake, making it look significantly different to what Suicune did, and I think that this encompasses that way of doing things, making it look astronomically different from what its present day counterpart looks like. And I mean, electric poison typing, one of my favorite typings. I loved it on Toxel's evolution.
Toxicity.
Toxicity. I loved it on them. I loved their designs. And I love this design as well.
I just love the idea of poison and electric and the idea of the way that toxins affect the body's system. It just completely encompasses the paralyzing and everything else.
Didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah, I think it also fits very well because it's got that bat motif to it. So
yeah, that's kind of a song. The only way that I'd like this more in terms of the lore behind it, if it was this exact design but aquatic, and then I could really see where something that was an electric poison predator of the ocean became Raikou when it came on land, or pseudo Raikou.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I think that could be very cool. I was gonna say your concept for an electric poison type could be a very cool concept for your region, for like a jellyfish type Pokemon.
That would be interesting. I'm surprised they didn't do a Peruvian Manowar, or Portuguese Manowar rather, for the Paldea region.
That could have made a cool Pokemon.
Just a quick aside here. Manowar, hell of a metal band. Highly recommend. No, my thoughts on this is I love the fact that it's got very Noivern-like design base to it, and applying electric poison. I was trying to figure out like why, how, but if you look at that backing, the mane of the standard Raikou, it's purple, and usually the purple is associated with the poison typings. So them going electric poison is a great idea to begin with. The fact that the mane looks almost like fire, which whenever you have lightning strikes in a dry area, guess what you get? You get fire. So I love the look of that, and I actually adore the fact that they've kept the color scheme going with that long mane. But also, when they've shifted the colors to the blue and the purple, you get much more poison type feeling from it. Not as much electricity, but the tail's still there with the spark at the end. You still have that flowing blue mane, and there's still enough attractiveness to the shiny form that I would spend time hunting this thing down if it came out in a shiny. I think this design is actually really solid. It's one of the ones that I was actually gravitating towards as well.
If I get the shiny form, I need a black light. This is totally a ray of Pokemon. I can imagine the lights in its mane actually pulsing through it, because it's very reminiscent of lightning when you see it flashing inside of a cloud. And the way this thing flies, I think that's a miasma cloud coming from like its mouth to form its mane too.
Oh, that is.
So this thing flies in an electrified cloud of miasma that it spews at high speed.
I like that.
I like it.
Always on the lookout for unsuspecting prey darting at high speed to sink its veins and inject a large amounts of venom. And I can imagine this venom being so toxic that when it oxidizes, it's just vapor. That's so cool.
There's one I do want to point out. It's brilliant. I think it's definitely a Pokemon that needs a little bit more love in my book. But the Combi Paradox Pokemon of Iron Hive.
I saw this a while ago. Yeah, that's awesome.
I like the fact that it's very much like a Magnezone or Wishy-Washy type of feel to it, where it's many but one. I like the fact that the Combis look like they're literally forming the hive, since they look like cells of a beehive. The fact that they gave them electricity is also really cool, because, what's the biggest weakness of flying? Because I believe Combi is normally but flying, right? So turning the weakness into a future version, having the becoming the weakness in the electric, as far as electric goes, I think was great. Was a novel idea. Instead of a beehive containing honey, this is containing electricity. Even the shiny looks really interesting to me. I'm pretty sure I would not have come up with those colors, and in a way they work. They really work. Me pausing, trying to describe this isn't me trying to come up with words of why I don't like it. I actually love it. I think the idea behind it, the color scheme behind it was great. I'm just lacking the words to show my appreciation for how I love this shiny comparatively to, and I love the original form too. Like, this was an overall, for me, a very solid build. I would hunt this thing down all day long.
Yeah, I completely agree. This thing is phenomenal. There's a few points that I had to restrain myself from jumping in on this. The cool part about it being a hive and getting the electric type is, what do bees do? They buzz. What is electric? You know, electricity is often seen to have this buzz or this hum as an idle thing. In the Dex entry description, they're used as almost like an inverse bug zapper. Instead of using energy to kind of shut down these bugs, this actually is used as sort of a way station or a way of producing clean energy in larger cities.
That's really cool.
Yeah, they put a lot of thought into this, especially when I start reading these Dex entries.
They're definitely knocking stuff out. I have to really appreciate the effort that they've been putting into their designs and the lore behind their designs, which is impressive.
I want to know what happens if I take this power regular off of one of these.
Overload.
Kaboom?
Explosion?
Kaboom.
Hey, there's a move that gets explosion.
I would catch one and call it Legion. It just reminds me too much of like that.
I am one. I am many.
I am one. I am many. We are Legion.
Yeah, again,
Don't tell everyone.
There's a lot of really cool designs. Like, I could spend all day looking at their stuff and just talking about it.
Yeah.
I just gotta add that Iron Justice is just the Cobalion Pokezord in warrior mode.
Yes.
It's the Tiger Zord gone battle mode.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Battle mode initiated.
Yes.
I gotta admit, I do like that one. Iron Justice looks pretty cool.
Only because of that reference. Otherwise, I think it would have been a stretch.
And with that, brings our episode to a close. Thanks, Champion Spirit, for joining us on this episode today.
Always have the best one until the next one, man.
And please remember to share, like, and subscribe. Let us know how we're doing down below. What are your thoughts about these particular Pokemon that were presented in this Artist Alley? Also, be sure to check out the links below to the artists, as well as to Last Champion Spirit's channel. And as always, have a wonderful day. Bye!
Oh.
Alola.
Remember, you have the spirit.